Welcome to Aprendamos Español, our first lesson in our intermediate course. So in this video, we're going to differentiate between the verb ser and the verb estar. We're going to go over the definitions and conjugations of each verb, the uses of each verb, and times where the rule is broken a little bit maybe, and then finally we're going to practice how to use these verbs. Now this lesson assumes that you already understand verb conjugation, that you already understand all of the Spanish pronouns, and that you already have a basic understanding of Spanish grammar. So for those of you who maybe are taking a refresher course in your Spanish, this would be helpful as well. So let's talk about the verb ser and the verb estar. Both the verb ser and the verb estar mean to be. For example, if you were to say, I am a human, or he is happy, or she is nice, they both mean the verb to be, but they mean it in different contexts. You use ser when you're saying a permanent feature or a permanent trait or something that's long-term. For example, if you were to say he is a man or she is a woman, that's something you're born with, that's something that's permanent. You use estar, however, to talk about being something that is temporary. Like if you were to say he is happy today or she is sad today. Because those are things that are short-term or they're subject to change, you use the temporary verb to be in those situations. So the conjugations for each of them in the present tense are as follows. For ser, you would say, yo soy, tú eres, él, ella, usted es, nosotros somos, vosotros sois, ellos, ellas, ustedes son. Now I know that some of you who maybe took a class where they just put an X in this box right here might be saying, well, what in the world does sois mean? Well, sois comes from the Spanish pronoun vosotros, okay? This is mostly used in Spain. It's sometimes used in Argentina and Chile, and it means you all, okay? But it's informal, whereas ustedes, you're referring to y'all or you all as a formal situation. You use an informal version to refer to a group of friends. It would be vosotros. A simpler way to put it is that vosotros is basically the plural form of tú. So if you're talking to a group of friends, use vosotros, especially if you're in Spain. Okay, and its conjugation from ser is sois. Now over to estar, yo estoy, tú estás, él, ella, usted está, nosotros estamos, vosotros, again the same pronoun is used here, vosotros estáis, ellos, ellas, ustedes están. Okay? So those are all the conjugations for the verbs ser and estar. Remember, they both mean to be, but ser is to be in more of the long-term or permanent sense. Estar is to be in the more short-term or temporary sense. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule, but we will talk about those in a little while. But for now, let's practice the usages of these verbs. Now, you'll see that everything pertaining to the verb ser is on the left. Everything pertaining to estar is on the right. Now, you use ser if you're talking about someone's origins, but you use estar if you're talking about their location. Now, both of these refer to a location, but one refers to where you're from, which is something that, you cannot change, whereas your current location you can change. For example, use ser to talk about origin. You could say, soy de los, and I'm just going to put the abbreviation, Estados Unidos. Soy de los Estados Unidos, and here's what it stands for. Estados, which means states, Unidos, which means united, okay? I am from the United States. Now, this is obvious why you would use the permanent verb to be ser, because when you say I am from the United States, this is something that's permanent and cannot change. I can't, go back into a time machine, go back in time and have my parents, have me in a different country or something like that. It's set in stone. It's something that will not change. So when you're talking about the location you were born in, which is a permanent fact, use ser, okay? I am from the United States. Soy de los Estados Unidos. Now, when you're talking about a place that you currently are right now, but it's temporary, you theoretically could get up and leave that place. You could say, for example, él está en México, okay? Él está en México. Notice how you're using estar here because it's temporary. You're saying he is in Mexico. The idea behind this is that you're saying that he is in Mexico right now. Like, maybe he's on a trip or he's moving there for a few years, but it's a fact that is subject to change. The economy in Mexico could, worsen and he could choose to leave Mexico, or he could like Mexico so much, but then say, I prefer to try South America now, and he could go to South America. But the overall idea is that when something is subject to change, use estar. Your origin is not subject to change because you don't have a time machine. And even if you did, it'd be the grandfather paradox. But that's for another matter of discussion. Anyway, you use ser because it is not subject to change. Where you're from is permanent and set in stone. Meanwhile, where you are right now could be changed, okay? So that is why you use estar. So in general, when asking about the difference between ser and estar, ask yourself, is the thing I'm talking about something that could change? If it could change, then you want to use estar. But if it's permanent, you want to use ser. Now, you use both ser and estar to talk about someone physically, but you use them for different things. Like if you're talking about things the person was born with, again, going back to things you're born with being permanent, if you're talking about what a person was born with, use ser. If you're talking about how that person's feeling right now, use estar. Okay, let me give you an example of that. Okay, I'm going to say one of myself. I would say, yo soy un hombre. Okay? You would say, I am a man. Okay, this is what I was born with. This is not subject to change. No matter how I would dress myself, I can't change the fact that I have one X chromosome, one Y chromosome. So in Spanish, this is just to let you know, in Spanish and just in general, your gender is permanent, okay? Or your eye color, or your height, or anything like that. For example, I could say, yo soy un hombre alto. I just expand the sentence. I could say, I am a tall man. Remember, in Spanish, you put your noun first and your adjective second, unlike in English. In English, you would say, I am a tall man. Here, this literally says, I am a man tall. Okay? Remember, Spanish puts the noun first, then the adjective. So just remember that. It's the reverse of English. So, my height is something that is permanent. Now, I know theoretically a person could, you could say, well, what if they end up in a wheelchair? Or wouldn't that shorten their height or something like that? There's tons of things that do happen, but when you're referring typically to things a person was born with, you cannot go back in time and change the fact that that person was born with that. So then you would use ser, because things you were born with use the permanent verb in Spanish. I am a tall man, okay? But when you're talking about physical condition, like say someone gets sick for a couple weeks, or say someone breaks their leg and they're in a cast for a week or something like that. When you're talking about temporary things that are about their physical condition, not things that they were intrinsically born with, like they get injured or they're ill for a little bit, use estar. Use the temporary form of the verb to be. For example, you could say, están enfermos hoy. Now this comes from the word enfermo, which means sick or ill. They are ill today, or they are sick today. Now these people weren't born, están, of course comes from the they form. They are. These people weren't born sick. They just happen to be sick today. Like say, you and your friends all went out to your favorite Italian themed sub place. I'm not going to name any names. And you all get like some sort of, I don't know, double bacon turkey sandwich or something like that. And they didn't, changed the bacon from last week and they get a stomach bug. Now, this stomach bug is not permanent, okay? This illness or injury or whatever is not permanent. It's something they're just going through now or for a couple weeks or whatever. Use Estar because it is not a permanent trait of the person. They are going to get better eventually. So for physical condition, if it can be recovered from, use Estar because then it's not permanent. Now we get down to the final distinction between ser and Estar, and that is when you're talking about someone's personality or someone's preferences or anything like that, you're going to typically use permanent verbs like ser. When you're talking about how someone's feeling right now, use Estar. For example, if you were to say this phrase right here, somos simpáticos, okay? And let me not forget my accent mark over the A. Remember, as I taught in my beginner courses, your accent marks are important. Somos simpáticos. Now again, you would make simpático plural because the people that are nice are plural as well. And in Spanish, you always make your descriptor match your person that's being described in number and in gender, okay? And so somos simpáticos. The word simpático means friendly or nice. So what you're saying here is we are friendly. Now, you're not saying we are being friendly right now. What you're saying is that our personalities are friendly. You're literally saying we are friendly people. Okay? So when you use ser to describe a trait of personality or a trait of character, what you're saying is that this applies to the person in general. Like if I were to say somos enojados, we are angry people. Okay? You're not just saying we're feeling a little angry right now. You're saying we are angry in general. Okay? It's more of a long-term statement that's talking about our whole lives, not just about, how we're feeling in the moment. Now, if you were to say this right here, ella está enojada, okay? Enojada is the word for angry, okay? Ella está enojada. Now, like I told you before, when you're using estar to describe a personality trait, then it's not really talking about their personality in general. It's just talking about how their mood, how they are feeling right now. And what you're basically saying is she is feeling angry, okay? So when you use estar plus an emotion or something like that, that's saying that you are feeling that right now. But if you use ser and an emotion or something like that, then you're saying that this is how the person just is in general, okay? So remember, in general, for estar, it is talking about things that are subject to change, things that are sort of in the moment or temporary. Now, if you're using ser, you're talking about things that are long-term or permanent. Now, we have a few exceptions to these rules, a few of these that cannot be cleanly classified in the above categories. And that is, you use ser when you're talking about occupation, like, a job a person has. You use ser when talking about the date and time, but you use estar when you're talking about the present progressive, something that a person is doing right now. Now, take occupation, for example. What does this statement mean right here? Sois maestros, okay? Sois maestros. Now, you'll know that sois, as we reviewed before for the conjugations of ser, means you all are, but, you're talking to your friends. It's informal. You all are teachers, or you all are, instructors. Now, you use ser for a job a person has, even if they're not going to hold that job their entire life. Like, say you're a waiter for 6 months, or say you're what's another example? You're a policeman for a year, or you're a tutor for 2 years. It doesn't matter. If it's not permanent, it doesn't matter. You still use ser. Use ser for a job whether or not it is temporary or permanent. And I know that may be a little counterintuitive. Say you get a job, but you're only planning to work it for a few months. Do you still use ser? Yes, you do. Now, I have a theory as to why that is. I don't know if this theory is true or not, but it's a helpful little story to help you memorize why you use ser for occupation. I theorize that when the Spanish language was developing back hundreds of years ago, people didn't have the same kind of economy that we do now, where if you wanted to change a career, you could just go to community college, get a new certificate, and then change careers or something like that. What you had to do back then is you entered into the occupation that your father was. If your father was a blacksmith, you were a blacksmith. If your father was a shepherd tending to sheep, you were a shepherd who tended to sheep. If your father, was in the wealthy class, you were in the wealthy class doing whatever wealthy class people did. I think that back when the Spanish language was developing, your family's occupation defined what you were and what you could do in life. And so there was a degree of permanence in that, because basically you were born into whatever family trade you were going to get into, because trades were passed down from father to son. So that fits in line with things you're born with being permanent. And so that's just my theory. I don't actually know if any of that is true, but you got to admit, it is a nice little story that helps you remember that when talking about a job or an occupation, use the verb ser, not estar, even if it's short term. Now, you use the verb ser to talk about what time it is as well. For example, you could say es la una, which means it is 1 o'clock. Now, an important thing to remember, see the verb ser is right here? Use the singular form of ser if the hour is singular. Use the plural form of ser if the hour is plural. You could say son las siete, okay? Which means, it is 7 o'clock. Remember, you use the plural form of the verb ser if the hour is plural, because siete is more than 1, right? Siete is 7, so that's plural, that's more than 1. So you always use the plural form of time if the hour is plural. Use the singular form of time if the hour is singular. So 1 o'clock is the only time you ever are going to use es. Other than that, use the plural version, son. How about date? You would say hoy es martes, okay? Today is Tuesday, all right? Hoy es martes. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is it that you use es, which is permanent, to describe the day that it is when the day is subject to change? When, tomorrow is going to come. It's not going to be today forever. So why would you use ser for that? The answer is, I don't know. That's just how Spanish works. Every language has its quirks. But it's good to know this. When you're talking about anything with regards to date and time, use the verb ser, all right? So it's just a quick shorthand. Now, finally, we get over to estar. Estar is used to form the present progressive. And the present progressive is basically the idea I am doing. Like if you say I am eating, I am writing, he is swimming, we are looking. Anything you are doing right now, the am in that sentence, I am, he is, she is, you are, that part of the verb is always estar. And then your other verb, whether it's eating, drinking, whatever, your verb is going to be in the present progressive form. Now, if you have 501 Spanish verbs, you'll notice that it's called the gerund or the gerundio. But in general, it's your verbs that end in ando or iendo, okay? Ando and iendo are basically the equivalent of ing in English. Let's take the verb comer, for example. How would you express the thought, I am eating, okay? You would start with the appropriate form of estar, which would be estoy. Then you would take your verb and put it in the present participle. But which ending do you use? How do you know whether or not to use the iendo ending or the ando ending? Well, there's a very easy way to have this memorized. If it's an AR verb, use ando. See the A there? A as AR verb, they correspond. If it's an ER verb or an IR verb, use iendo. Notice how there's an E here and an I here. Those are little helpful ways to memorize which one you should use. Comer is an ER verb, so it's obvious we use iendo. Estoy comiendo, okay? Which is how you say I am eating, like I am eating right now. Okay, so that is basically the difference between the verb ser and the verb estar. Remember, things that are permanent use ser. If you're talking about occupation and time, use ser. Things that are temporary, use estar. And if you're trying to form the present progressive, you need estar as well. So let's go over a few practice drills to wrap this up. All right, so the first thing I want you to do is to differentiate between these two statements. Ella está enojada and ella es enojada. Then after that, I want you to translate these following statements. He is outside. She is from Texas. We are lawyers. It is 5 o'clock and we are nervous today. Now, I want you to take some time and actually remember, you see how you have the verb to be in each of these statements? You have is, are, okay? These are all using the verb to be, but you have to distinguish whether or not you need ser to do that, complete that statement, or estar to complete that statement. So go ahead and pause the video and take a few minutes to put your answers down, and then we'll go over them together. Okay, so I assume that you have unpaused the video, that you've already done this, and so we're going to move on together. Now, the first thing I asked you to do is differentiate between the statement ella está enojada and ella es enojada. What is the difference between these two? Well, you know that using estar here makes this a temporary thing, makes it a mood, makes it momentary. So what this is literally saying is she is feeling angry, okay? So this is like she is feeling angry, like she's angry, or she is angry, or another way to say it is like she is angry today, or she is angry right now. So this is talking about a feeling or a mood, okay? So it's temporary. She is feeling angry. Whereas ella es enojada, using the permanent verb there, means it's a personality trait. So this is like literally saying she is an angry, okay? And because we use she is an angry woman, all right? If it was él es enojado, it would be he is an angry man. Or if it's ellos son enojados, they are angry people, okay? But notice how because we have the permanent verb, we're talking about their personality, whereas the temporary verb only talks about their mood. So that is the difference between these two statements. You want to be careful which form of ser you use there. Now let's move on. He is outside. This is a temporary location. This is subject to change. He could go inside. So this would be él está, remember your accent marks, afuera, okay? Él está afuera. Use a star because he could go back inside. It's temporary. How about she is from Texas? Ella es de Texas, okay? Ella es de Texas. She is from Texas. We're using the permanent verb to be there. Es, we use the permanent verb simply because this is talking about origins, okay? She can't go back in time and change where she was born. So you use the permanent verb ser. How about this one? We are lawyers, okay? The correct answer would be somos abogados, okay? Somos abogados. Because why? Being a lawyer is an occupation. And like I said, Spanish uses the permanent verb for your occupation. So you would say somos abogados. We are lawyers. How about it is 5 o'clock, okay? Remember, you're supposed to use ser to talk about date and time. So you must ask yourself, is the hour plural? Yes, it is. 5 is more than 1. That is plural. So you would say son las 5. Okay? Because remember, talking about date and time, use the verb ser. But if your hour is plural, use son. Use the plural of ser. All right. Now, we are nervous today. Okay? We are nervous today. Are we permanently nervous people, or are we just feeling nervous today? Well, the sentence says we are just feeling nervous today. So we know that because it's temporary, we are going to use the temporary verb, which is estar. So you would say, estamos nerviosos hoy. Okay? Hoy as in today. Alright, so that is a good way to get you started. Again, remember the difference between ser and estar. Typically, if something is permanent, use ser. If something's temporary, use estar. The exception being your career, which could change, but you still use ser. Use ser when talking about time and date, and use estar when forming the present progressive. Alright, well, go out and practice that. Aprendamos Español.